the universe is going to provide a lesson that might not be the most ideal way for you to learn, but it's going to allow you the opportunity to embrace that growth. Finding that ability to respond accordingly to the situation is something that is going to allow you to not let other people take control over your peace, take control over your sanity. Quantum leap is just a way of saying, your growth, your massive timeline shift, a focus that was now directed to a different pinpoint in your life. This is why I believe that having the right mentors in your life is extremely important. Personally, this is why I started Walking Manifestor coaching. I wanted to share more insights that I've been able to incorporate into my day-to-day that has allowed me to live a life that's not just another day. It's actually, what am I going to learn from this day? What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for joining me on another episode for Walking Manifestor. I'm your host, Pena, and today I want to share with you some key takeaways for the Law of One. These are takeaways that, as you guys that have been following along have noticed, the theme of this entire podcast is to help you really embrace the consciousness that you have above your thoughts. And the only way that I have learned to embrace this myself is by understanding that I am a lot more than this meat suit that you see or hear in front of you right now. The bottom line is that we are the consciousness above our thoughts. And in today's podcast, I want to share with you a little bit more so that you can further understand the Law of One, and in turn also go down that rabbit hole on your own and see for yourself if this is something that you agree with and if you resonate with. Now, I'm going to share with you 4 key components of the Law of One that personally have helped me. So if you see me, if you're watching this YouTube video, or if you're listening, of course you don't see my eyes, but if you see me looking over here, I am referencing some of the points that I have written down for us. Now, the first thing I really want to talk to you about today is that everything we're going to share is simply here to help you consider another perspective. That's all I can do. That is the bottom line, right? I think that certain times in our life, we're so used to people wanting to sway us one way or another that we tend to get very defensive and we tend to hold very dear to our principles, to our morals, to our standards, to our belief system. But I want to just share with you insights that for me at one point sounded so far-fetched because I had not experienced how these beliefs actually impacted my life. And for those of you that have seen my first episode, I shared with you my story. I shared with you that I came from a very much so limiting belief background. I didn't have my parents, I didn't have money, I grew up with my grandparents in a storage room, and that was the only story I knew. I only knew the story of the girl that was abandoned, I only knew the story of the girl that didn't have resources, and I only knew the story of the girl that basically felt like if everybody left her life. And this is important to note because in the end, wherever you are right now in your journey, I know you have a story. I know there's something in your life that has happened that has conditioned you to think the way you think. Whether that was abusive parents, whether that was not having resources, whether that's still currently happening, fill in the blank. Every single one of us has a story. However, the true power comes from understanding that that story was actually necessary for your development. It was necessary for you to better understand so that when you are in a position where you're able to help somebody understand that they can break free from that limiting belief, limitation, whatever it is, you can actually talk to them from a perspective of, I understand what you're going through because I've been through that myself. That's my belief system, and I want to share with you one of the key components that has helped me really solidify that is the unity of consciousness. Now, I took a quick note here and it says, recognize and internalize that all beings are interconnected and that separation is an illusion. The understanding fosters compassion, empathy, sense of oneness. Now, that took me a while to understand, and the way I want to dissect it with you right now is if you can get behind the fact that we're all energy, and this is not just theology that I'm throwing out, this is actual science that now has been backed up by years of evidence and research, which most of us, if we don't see it, we don't believe it, right? That's just the way that we've been conditioned. However, if you're in this quest of better understanding yourself, I want to believe that you've gotten to the point where you understand some things just happen without you even knowing how necessarily they happened, because you didn't see them unfold, but they still happened. This is one thing that for me, understanding how we are connected through the fact that we are all energy really made a breakthrough. And I'm gonna share with you something that personally I used as an example in my life. So for the longest time, when it came down to beliefs around money, right? I believed that I was not worthy of it. However, I really wanted to grow. I really wanted to just embrace more abundance in my life. A lot of people talk about how they changed after they had their first child, or they changed after they had that one moment in their life that affected them. That didn't really happen with me, and I personally have heard other people that I admire also share very similar stories when asked. And for me, when people say it was just one event, and people sometimes say it was, they lead it to their kids or they lead it to that one moment, I don't actually think it was one moment in my life. It was actually a culmination of moments in my life that started really shifting my focus. And I do believe that having my first child was a huge milestone in terms of that growth. However, it didn't really change me in the sense that I was interested in learning how to be a better overall person by understanding myself. I wanted to be better, but I didn't really have that clear outline as to what could I do to be better. I was still going out, hanging out with people that weren't necessarily looking for better things in life. I still, wanted to every now and then go out and have a drink. I was still very much in this mindset that didn't really give you the inclination of aspiring to better things, bigger and better things. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong if you personally want to go out and drink and you're a working mom or dad, or you're just a single person and you want to go out and have a drink. That is your free will. However, for me, one of the pivotal moments in my life is when I started really understanding that this body that I have, this is a temple. And I had heard that word thrown out a lot, right? I had heard a lot of people talk about it's your temple and you should take care of it, but I never really took it to heart in the sense of I want to make sure I take care of my temple in what I consume and what skincare I'm putting on my largest organ. There was a lot of little things that I really wasn't taking into consideration. And when I really started embracing the journey of better understanding why I was doing the things that I was doing, how these limitations had came to actually pass based off my psyche, based off my previous experiences in life, that was when really understanding that taking care of myself was important, but furthermore, understanding myself. And this is where the law of one really comes into play, because you cannot show grace to anybody else if you don't show grace to yourself. If you're just somebody that is constantly putting yourself down, if you're just somebody that is constantly telling yourself how you're not worthy, how you're ugly, how you're never able to amount to anything, how everybody else is better than you, you're not really believing in yourself. And you could sit here and say, well, yeah, because I haven't amounted to anything. But then we go into the law of vibration. And we've talked about this in other episodes. What you are constantly vibrating at is the energy that you're going to attract. This is why a lot of people don't like this concept. And in one of our future episodes, we will talk a little bit more about the science of manifestations. But this is why I say that everything, if you consolidate it, comes from actual perspectives that we are feeding ourselves based off things that we have gone through in our childhood. And now we are attracting that belief system and solidifying it with the actions that we're taking to actually solidify the thoughts that we're having. So if you're saying, I'm not worthy, maybe you go and self-sabotage that new job opportunity. Or maybe somebody offers you a new job opportunity and you say no because you're afraid. And that's the bottom line. Maybe you don't want to take more responsibilities and you sit there and say, no, I'm better off, being in this situation because I'm not going to do this, let's say job opportunity to be, a business owner. But you're still so consumed by the things that you went through that in a very subconscious thought of yours, you're still believing you're not worthy. Therefore, you're not willing to take on that second step. And the only way that you are actually rationalizing that is by justifying it and saying, I really don't want it. I really don't want to deal with people. I really don't want to do X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you have the opportunity to meet a person in your life and they really have a lot of potential. They really have a lot of things that you're like, wow, this person, I admire this person. This person is somebody that, has aspirations and X, Y, and Z. But maybe at a certain point, you start getting cold feet. And maybe at a certain point, you're like, do I really want to commit? Like, do I really want to deal with this person for the rest of my life? Yeah, they're a good person, but maybe there's somebody else out there. These conditions are actually coming from the psyche that has been actually preconditioned based off previous experiences. And when you start understanding your psyche, you start understanding that this is all energy. You start understanding that what you're doing to yourself is a ripple effect of what you're going to see in your external reality. You start really living in a consciousness versus a reactiveness. I mentioned before, your responsibility is simply your ability to how you respond to situations, right? So if you are somebody that is talking about what exactly responsibility is and you're like, well, I have chores that I need to do and I do them. In reality, it's the ability on how you responded to these situations. Did you get upset over the chores, or were you happy when you did the chores? Did you get upset at your kids, or did you find another approach to communicate with them that was going to allow you to solidify that message with them in a more holistic and harmonious way? So when we start really fostering this compassion toward ourselves, we're able to offer this compassion to others. Now, the second point that I really want to dial deep into is service to others. And I found that servicing to others can come in multiple ways. Okay, I'm not sitting here and saying you need to go to the animal shelter and stay every Saturday to, give spare time. But there are certain opportunities that life will give you, and you will see as you are paying more attention, you will notice that life is going to give you opportunities in which it is your responsibility, again, how you're going to respond, to actually pay it forward. So maybe it's, you have an extra dollar laying around and you see this person that, really could use it, and you can afford to give them that dollar. Doing it from your heart and not doing it from that instant gratification feeling of like, oh, look at me, I'm helping somebody, has a karmic effect. And I know this is controversial. I know some people are like, well, they should work and they should do it because I'm able to do it. Look, if you're gonna help, do it because it's coming from you without that judgment of where that person is. Because remember, life has a very interesting way of humbling us. And if we believe that we are here to learn, if we believe that we are here to grow, then karmically speaking here, it only makes sense that if you haven't learned that lesson that you need to learn, the universe is going to provide a lesson that might not be the most ideal way for you to learn, but it's going to allow you the opportunity to embrace that growth. Sometimes this is where you see people that they're like, I didn't want this to happen to me. I didn't want that person to leave. I don't know how I lost my job. I don't know how, whatever, fill in the blank. But there's a way that the universe, and I believe in soul contracts, I believe that everything that you are going through in this moment in life is actually part of what you agreed to go through before coming to this school of earth. But that's a whole other conversation. So if you agreed on these trials, if you believe that you agree to this growth here on earth, then there's a very different energy that you exert when you are going through that situation. So the way you're servicing others without passing judgment is definitely something that can provide contrast. And I'm speaking from my own experience when I've been without a relationship in terms of like a loved one, right? A partner. I find myself very calm, right? Very in an energy of gratitude and patience. And even though the boys can get me a little, over the edge, I find myself relaxing and I find myself really taking it in. However, when I've been in a situation where I need to deal with another person, whether that be a friendship, whether that be a partnership, whether that be an actual love relationship, I notice that they act as a mirror, right? There's certain qualities that you might see in that person that you're like, that's very triggering. And what that allows, and this is where, again, the growth starts happening, is for you to recognize, what is it about this person that is triggering me? What is it about this situation that I can learn from? So really that leads to the third point, which is the inner peace and harmony factor, right? So for me, when I have been in my own little bubble per se, and maybe this has happened to you, right? You're like, well, I'm a pretty calm person, but then they put you around somebody else that you need to interact with, and you're like, oh, that person is just not my cup of tea. I just don't like how they communicate. I don't like X, Y, and Z, and whatever the case is. There's an opportunity for you to grow there. And honestly, for myself, being completely transparent, I think that this is something that we're always having to gradually adjust to, and we're gradually having to learn from, because even myself, I've dealt with personalities that are very much alpha dominant personalities, and I've been known to be an alpha for a vast majority of my life. I always had to protect myself, defend myself, look after myself. So I grew up with that assertiveness. So when I've come into contact with other alpha energies, if I feel like there is a direct threat to my maybe credibility or maybe the way I'm coming across, whatever it might be, I've caught that there is a primal instinct in me that wants to defend, wants to react, wants to have the last word, and you need to catch it. I shared not too long ago, I went out to London, and when I went to London, I went with a friend, and there was a situation in that moment where this person, yelled at me, and the alpha in me wanted to yell back. Like, the alpha in me wanted to react. The alpha in me wanted to essentially take over. And I was actually quite proud of how I reacted in that moment, because instead of yelling, and it wasn't the best way to react either, but I shut down. I didn't react, I didn't yell, I didn't say anything, I didn't address anything. I just kind of stood quiet and I stayed in my energy. And maybe there's a better way to still obviously improve from that. 100%, you can always improve, you can always be better. But in that moment, I know that a alternative version of me would have been reactive and would have definitely led to a completely other situation, right? So living in that inner peace and harmony, recognizing that everything is a part of this journey, everything is a part of what you're supposed to be going through, everything is part of this higher consciousness that you're tapping into, is going to allow you to really be in harmony with the law of one. I made a note here which says, cultivate inner peace and harmony. Understand the external conflicts are reflections of the internal turmoil. Strive to solve inner turmoil to contribute to global peace. So that's something that for me, as I shared with you earlier, finding that ability to respond accordingly to the situation is something that is going to allow you to not let other people take control over your peace, take control over your sanity. And I strongly believe that when you're in this growth journey, okay, and I've seen it from many people. If you guys have not read the book, Neville Goddard, this is the deluxe collection. It has a bunch of his books within one. I highly recommend it. Also, The Inner Work is another great read. And I have a few other recommendations. Maybe I can put like a list together for you guys. And if you're interested in that, I could go ahead and leave it down below, and you can, claim it if you're watching this on YouTube, or you can reach out to us via email and go ahead and also claim it that way. But I find that when we learn from history, right, they often say history tends to repeat itself. We start to understand that realistically, whatever I'm triggering in you right now, maybe you're saying like, this lady's crazy, like that makes no sense. Like, why would I want to, partake in these, events or reactions in life? There's something internally within you that's going on there. I've noticed that when I'm judging somebody in my mind, I catch it and I'm like, why was I thinking like that? Like, why was I thinking that that didn't look good? Or why was I thinking that that was the way that they meant it? Like, I don't know what's going on in their mind. I don't know what is their thought process. And this is where you start really understanding that there is a lesson to be learned in every situation, whether it's the girl that was passing by you that gave you a stink eye and you are thinking the worst of her, but maybe in that moment in time, she just got done through a breakup and she just happened to see you and you reminded her of that person. Am I saying that it's justified for people to treat you in a way that you wouldn't treat them? Not at all. But I am saying you shouldn't give them that control. If that person did that to you, you shouldn't allow your energy to be exerted in that moment to say, oh my gosh, this person looked at me this way. And then you go on to talk about it to other people. And then you go on to make more energy go into that event versus just saying, oh, I hope she has a great day. I hope things get better for her. Whatever it might be. Living in alignment with universal laws. This is where following the laws of love, forgiveness, compassion is so important. And I am telling you, our primal instinct is to defend. Our primal instinct from our ancestors were to be hunting and gathering, right? We lived in tribes. Our overall civilization was completely different. And the important part to note here is that when you can start understanding where a lot of your ancestry and your ancestor trauma comes from, you can better understand where you need to release these blocks. And this is why I say that everything is energy. Everything stores energy, and you are part of the greater good. You are part of a collective consciousness. You are part of something so much bigger than you maybe actually see now. I'm going to read you a quick quote from the book. This is going to be the Oneness of God. This is going to be freedom for all. So essentially it says, God and man, spirit and matter, the formless and the formed, the creator and the creation, the cause and the effect, your Father and you are one. I think that is so powerful because when you really dissect that, and I'm gonna leave you guys, if you're interested in learning more about some of these teachings, I'm going to link on our episode, The Gospel of Peace, Book 1. I was listening to 𝐿𝐴𝐿, and he was talking with Andrew DeQuam on one of the podcasts that I love to listen to, Know Thyself. And he had Dr. Joe Dispenza on one of his episodes, and I just completely fell in love with the host that he has. And he was talking about how the Bible and the way that we currently have it laid out right now and the things that we are privy to, a lot of it actually has been changed through time. And a lot of it has been changed. And I always thought of that myself, but just hearing somebody else say it was just so reassuring. Because to me, I've always compared it to telephone. If I give you, that game, I don't know if you've ever played it, but if I give you a message right now in your ear and then you say it to another person and that person says it to another person and so forth, by the time it gets to the 1,000th person, that message has been completely lost in translation. And the Gospel of Peace actually talks a lot about the ancient teachings of Jesus. And one of the things that I really took from it is that we are all one and we are all connected, and we have so much power within us that if you start recognizing this power, you can understand that you are the exact fiber, essence, everything that Jesus had within him, you are also made of. And you also have the potential to break free from a lot of limiting beliefs. And I know that it's going to ruffle a few feathers because people believe that there is no way that somebody else can, we believe that we are the only person that, can essentially, we just pray and we hope for God to change things. I've heard a lot of people sometimes when, I'm dealing with them in a transaction for real estate that they'll say, oh, well, if it's meant to be, God will allow it to happen. But sometimes God gives you all the tools right in front of you, gave you the perfect deal, gave you the perfect house, gave you the perfect person to help you, but yet you're not jumping because you're afraid because of your belief system. And then you're blaming God because you're like, well, if it's meant to happen, it will happen, it will fall in my lap. No, God gave you 2 legs and gave you all the tools and the resources for you to go and make it happen for yourself. Go and do it. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to us in this context of religion. We want to believe that we don't have enough power, that we don't hold enough of this ability, so that now we are not accountable for changing these things. And anything that's happening in our external circumstances is simply, that's something we have no control over. It's easier to think that way versus knowing that you actually do have your hand in the mix and you are able to change your attitude, therefore change the reality that you're creating for yourself. So with that, I want to give you 4 tangible steps to become more aware of the law of one. The first one is meditation and mindfulness. And I am telling you, starting to really meditate has allowed me to better understand my thoughts. As I'm diving deeper into understanding myself, I'm making more of an effort to make time to meditate, because I will tell you this, I know that when things get very, sometimes busy in our external reality, we tend to neglect some of the things that bring us the closest to our wholeness. And this is where it's an active effort for you to make time to meditate, to understand yourself, to go above your thoughts. Now, number 2 is sacred text. Just studying more of the ancient teachings. A lot of times people actually think that Buddhism is a religion, and actually it's a way of living. I highly recommend that you start looking more into Buddhism. I know that a lot of people don't understand dogma. I really encourage you to really further solidify your understanding of what your purpose is by further understanding who you are and the things that you are currently doing that maybe you want to change. And in that gospel of peace, like I said, there's a bunch of information that is super empowering to help you better understand where you can start making small changes. Acts of kindness is the third one. And acts of kindness, like I mentioned earlier, can be anything. It can be as simple as you helping your parents do something that maybe you knew that weekend you wanted to take the weekend off, but you knew you could do something for them and you did it. Going and, volunteering if you can to a local organization. It doesn't have to be money. It can be your time. It can be 1 hour every week, whatever you can actually spare. Starting somewhere is better than never starting. And I know sometimes with, again, our lives, right? If you have kids, maybe you don't have kids, but you have a really demanding business. I know what it's like. I have 2 boys, I have a demanding business, I have my grandparents that live with me. I know it can get chaotic, but making time to really take this moment to do this podcast and share this insight with others gives me the space to feel like I am contributing to my purpose in life. I strongly believe that my purpose in life is to be a bridge, be a facilitator, and to allow others to uncover the true power that they have within them. Because I know what it's like to feel like you have no power and you feel isolated and you have this victim mentality. Therefore, when I broke free from that, and again, it's an active effort, I wanted to share that with others because I do believe in conscious awareness and I do believe in the collective consciousness. And I believe that by helping others in whatever way you can, you are elevating your awareness. And the number 4 is going to be mindful living. integrating mindfulness into your activities, walking, whenever you have time to have moments where you're giving back to the environment, making time to be connected with Mother Earth, taking time. I know sometimes for me, I love going on hikes, but sometimes I don't make the time to go on a hike. But when I go on a hike and I'm done with that hike, I feel so regenerated. I feel connected. And making time to actually do more of the things that bring you joy in life is what avoids you feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. If you're feeling burnt out right now, chances are you're doing a lot of the things that you don't want to do. And that is why now you are feeling overwhelmed and burnt out, because you're not actually giving enough time to the things that make you feel alive. Now, the last thing that I want to leave with you today is going to be whatever it is that you are focusing on right now in life, whatever it is that you feel is something you can improve on, trust your instinct. You see, when I've invested in mentors and I've invested in people to help me better understand some of the perspectives that I didn't understand fully yet, I noticed a quantum leap. And this word quantum leap is just a way of saying, you know, your growth, your massive timeline shift, a focus that was now directed to a different pinpoint in your life. This is why I believe that having the right mentors in your life is extremely important. Personally, this is why I started Walking Manifestor coaching. I wanted to share more insights that I've been able to incorporate into my day-to-day that has allowed me to live a life that's not just another day. It's actually, what am I going to learn from this day? And for those of you that are interested, we do have coaching available. So I know some people have been messaging us and asking us if there's any courses we have. We do, so I will make sure that I link that down below if that is something you're interested in, or if you're listening to on the podcast, we'll make sure we have it on the description. We do have a free training as well, completely free, and a free mantra workbook for those of you that are interested. Feel free to claim that. But in the end, I want to make sure that you are able to start incorporating the fact that you are worthy and you have so much potential within you. And if you can just start focusing on the fact that you have that potential, I promise you things will start to change. And the last quote I'm going to leave you is by Carl Jung, and that says, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to understanding ourselves." But think about it, everything that irritates you about somebody else is gonna allow you to better understand yourself. There's a saying in Spanish that says, when you can't see, I'm botching it here, right? But it's in Spanish, and it says, when you can't see in your neighbor's house, you must have it in your house. And it's so true, right? When we are pointing the finger, sometimes we have that own baggage within us that we're just too blind to see. So with that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on another episode. If you found any value from today's episode, I would highly appreciate you leaving a comment down below, or of course, if you're listening to it on a podcast, sharing it with somebody that you love and you are interested in having them hear the message is greatly appreciated. And as always, if there's anything in particular that you guys want to talk about, make sure that you let us know, and we'll be more than happy to address that in our future episodes. I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember to embody the walking manifestator that you are born to be.